Right, so I unintentionally shaved my head. No, but we'll get this out of the way first, because I know for some it's somewhat a drastic change if you've seen my other videos, right? I like to grow my hair out and then just get shorn every summer, right? Like a sheep. So yeah, easy done. Short is the look for now. But yeah, we've talked about Silver Age cards, right? Stuff to pick up in the generic slot. And unintentionally, I ended up talking mainly about utility cards, right? I think there was one attack in there, Sound the Alarm, but even that was a bit more on the defensive side. So a lot of you were very helpful in pointing out some really solid generic attacks. So I thought, why don't we cover that, right? Why don't we talk about some generic attacks you can pick up that do slot into a few different decks relatively well because they have just a unique design to them with, well, a whole chunk of Majestic Scorn. So starting off, we have Arsenal Disruption, right? So Wreak Havoc is probably the go-to as our pseudo Command and Conquer, right? So Wreak Havoc, defense reactions can't be played to Wreak Havoc's Chain Link, and that is definitely the really impactful effect. And then when this hits a hero, you may turn a card in their arsenal face up, then destroy a defense reaction in their arsenal. So unlike CNC, it's not blanket destruction to the card in arsenal, but it can still be quite impactful, right? Because it's a little bit high on the damage side that then also turns off defense reactions. Not that, we have the same amount of access to defense reactions or easy defense reactions, but there are still quite a few heroes that do want to take some really solid defense reactions. So it's definitely a nice, unique, functional card. And then even the secondary clause of you may turn a card in an arsenal face up is also nice against certain heroes, right? So think of the new Bravo Flattering Showman. He wants to flip his arsenal card face up to give it Dominate. So if you do that for him, you stop it, right? He can't flip his card up. So along with that, it does unfortunately have that -1 defense in relation to Command and Conquer, but still, it should come in handy. Now, similarly, we do have a few cards from Rosetta, with Wreak Havoc being from Outsiders, right, in the little corner there, forgot to mention it. So Smash Up and Hand Behind the Pen. So both these, when they hit a hero, turn a card in their arsenal face up, and then for Smash Up, if it's an attack action card, it gets banished, and then for Hand Behind the Pen, if it's a non-attack action card, it gets banished. Now, I guess worth mentioning, you also have Tongue-Tied, but Tongue-Tied is awful. Very, very awful, right? Just makes no sense whatsoever. It's against instants, and, well, the majority of instants can just be played in response to Tongue-Tied, right? So, yeah, the fact that we have access to these Arsenal disrupting cards is definitely nice in certain matchups, especially matchups if you know what your opponent's trying to do, what they're trying to stockpile, right? So, for instance, imagine Runeblade with Hand Behind the Pen, or a more aggressive deck, probably Ranger with, like, Smash Up, right? They can have some functional use to them, and at the very least, force your opponent to maybe block. They really want to keep that card. So, yeah, there is definitely value to Arsenal Disruption. Now, in terms of flexible attacks, we have the new string of hidden cost cards from Super Slam. So, Bluster Buff, Chest Buff, and Look Tough, right? So, a 1 for 6, a 2 for 7, and a 3 for 8. Kinda, right? They all have, when this stacks, it gets -1 power unless you pay 1 resource. So that does make them really, really flexible. So it means Buster Bluff is a 2 for 6, Chest Buff a 3 for 7, and Look Tough, of course, a 3 for 8, which makes them very fair value, and they all have 3 block, which is definitely something to consider. So at the very least, you're throwing out a 1 for 5, potentially, with a card like Bluster Buff, but then if you do have those resources floating, you can reap that little bit of benefit, and that is definitely super solid. So not only are these big cards to fit into different decks, right? So Bluster Buff as a nice finisher for a wide hero, and then Chest Buff and Look Tough for some of those bigger heroes, but again, they come with 3 block, and 3 block cannot be undervalued at all in Silver Age. Now, in terms of regaining tempo, we have a few different cards that have the good old, if you have less life than the opposing hero, it gets something. So Scar for a Scar is definitely the golden standard of this mechanic. When this is played, if you have less life than the opposing hero, it gets Go Again. So a nice 0-4 Go Again, 2 block, but that's fine, is definitely good value. Found in Wild Rathe, Uprising, and High Seas. Similar to it, we have Life for a Life, Blow for a Blow, and Adrenaline Rush. So Life for a Life, you're paying 1 for all the same stat line, but then when it hits, you get to gain a life, and that can be valuable to some degree. It's all about whether or not you have that resource. Blow for a Blow, you're paying 2 for an extra chip damage. Now that does get a little bit worse. And then Adrenaline Rush, you're paying 2 for the potential to swing for 7, which puts it slightly above value, right? So Adrenaline Rush can be a nice big finisher. Blow for a Blow could be some chip damage that can definitely come in handy. And Life for a Life can be a little bit of life gain, but ultimately Scar for a Scar is the big one as just a nicer 0-4 Go Again if you are losing the fight. So if you're in a really aggressive deck where you really want to just go back and forth with your opponent, you're sort of fine with letting your health tick down because you get valuable effects like Scar for a Scar. Now, in terms of flexible defense, we have Sirens of Safe Harbor, Ferendil's Fighting Spirit, and Battlefront Bastion. So found respectively in their numbered sets. So Sirens from High Sea, Farandels from Uprising, and Battlefield Bastion from Mistveil. Sirens of Safe Harbor. When this is put into your graveyard from anywhere, you get to gain a life, right? So it's definitely the most open-ended. You discard it, or of course you attack with it when the combat chain closes, or you defend with it, you get that life gain. Now, similar to it, you have Farendel's Fighting Spirit. When this attacks or defends, if you have less life than the opposing hero, you get to gain a life. So still same similar clause, right? You can attack with it to gain a life, or you can block with it to gain a life. And then Battlefront Bastion, if this defends alone, prevent the next 1 damage that will be dealt to you this turn. So usually really nice with defense reactions. Or of course, if, 2 blocks enough, right? So if you do throw this out with equipment or another card to sort of hit breakpoints, then you do lose that prevent 1. But if you just are blocking out a 2, and there's some decent 2s to block, right? Like weapon swings or some of the smaller attacks, it can be usable, right? And then you get that 1 prevention to go with a 3 block and make that a breakpoint of 4. It's definitely really, really nice. But yeah, these are definitely some functional, decently sized attacks that you can use a little bit more on the defensive side as well. Now, in terms of defense, we also have some responsive cards, right? Rally the Rearguard and Rally the Coast Guard. So again, with defense reactions being a bit more of a premium, these types of instant effects to respond to what your opponent's doing are definitely really, really nice. So Rally the Rearguard and Rally the Coast Guard both have the same effect. Once per turn, instant, discard a card, and then this gets +3 block. You can only activate this ability while it is defending, and they both start with 2 blocks. So you can take them in any color, and that does not affect their block value. So essentially, it's a 2 block that can become a 5 in a pinch if you really need it, and maybe get a little bit more value out of another card that maybe doesn't block, or maybe has 2 block itself, and you get sort of the value there, right? But yeah, being able to respond to dominate or attack reactions can definitely be solid enough. Now, we also have a sense of accrued value. So Jack Be Quick and Jack Be Nimble are great for decks that are running Nimblism, because it means as you get further in through your deck, these cards become a little bit stronger. So they both become 4 power go-agains with a decent on-hit effect depending on who you're against. So Jack Be Quick hits a hero, tap an ally they control, so good against Gravy, and then Jack Be Nimble, steal an item they control until the end of the action phase, and you might be able to use it, so good against Mech, right? But of course, you always have the fallback, as intended, more so with High Seas, to yoink some gold with Jack Be Nimble. So yeah, if you're in a small deck that can definitely get the value out of Nimblism, then these cards are just that little bit extra value. So they're good in aggro, and of course low cost mid-range, where you can apply Nimblism's effect to what you're trying to do. Now, to go along with that, we also have Swift Strike Braces and Quick Clicks, right? So these are definitely some really high value equipment pieces that are really good with Nimblism, and kind of this whole package is why Nimby had to go, because it by itself was already really good value, but then you tack these on, and that's quite the powerful turn. So yeah, there's definitely some value to taking certain packets of cards and having this level of synergy. Now, some good old school staples. Ravenous Rabble. So perfect in a red line aggro deck, right? So when this attacks, reveal the top card of your deck. This gets -X power, where X is the pitch value of the card revealed. So you reveal a red, and this is a 0/4 go again, and that is beautiful. That's what you really want in aggro, is that type of stat line to really just push the damage across. So Ravenous Rabble, definitely a good old staple. Now, looking for a scrap, there are some decks that can definitely make use of this. So as an additional cost to play looking for a scrap, you may banish a card with 1 power from your graveyard. When you do, this gains +1 and go again. So a 1 for 5 with go again is definitely really good value as well. So if you do have a deck that's synergized with it, for instance, Reviled KO from Super Slam, you can definitely get a lot of value out of this, and he's definitely looking to take these types of cards along with those 1 power. But there are a few other still nice 1 power cards that could definitely make looking for your scrap just that little bit more value, because again of that accrued aspect where you're getting that little bit extra value to make a slightly worse card a little bit better over the course of the game, since Silver Edge should be lasting slightly longer, if not decently longer, than of course Blitz. Now, Snatch, another good old staple. When this hits, draw a card. So again, good in a go-again class where this can be your finisher. So it's a nice bit of a tempo push that then threatens the ability to arsenal a card through its draw effect. So Snatch itself doesn't have go-again. There are a few heroes that can definitely give Snatch go-again and make it even more pressuring. But in a lot of cases, it is just really nice to go wide, fully commit, dump your hand, and then end with a Snatch, and your opponent either gives you their cards, kind of basically just passes back to you, or you do get that Arsenal card, and then you can still have a nice hefty turn the next go around as well, right? So Snatch, definitely really good in any class that can fit it into the end of whatever sequence they're trying to do. And then lastly, Push the Point. So Push the Point can definitely be really, really good value, right? So it's potentially a 1/4/6 if you get its effect off. So if the last attack on this combat chain has hit, push the point, gains +2. So you just need to get a hit across. Now, it is the last attack this combat chain has hit, so flicking a dagger doesn't quite work. It has to be the attack itself that has hit, because that is the last attack. But being able to then throw that 1 for 6 is definitely solid enough. Definitely the type of card that can send your arsenal until you can really punish with it and get the full value out of it. But yeah, it was definitely a scary thing a little while ago, so I'm looking forward to seeing it being a little bit more threatening again. But there we go, right? Some more good generic staples for Silver Age, focusing a bit more on the attack side. But just like last time, if I've missed anything, feel free to let me know. Otherwise, I think we will dabble into the class cards, right? We'll try not to go too extreme, because there's probably a good chunk of cards. We'll probably try to look primarily at cards that are definitely above value across all classes, but I think we can squeeze out another one of these staple videos looking a bit more broadly. So yeah, generic utility, generic attacks, and then class coming up next. Hope you enjoyed. Let me know. See ya.